New series, beginning with some tales from the underworld from the women who love gangsters.
Frances she always looked like a film star, always, but terrified.
How did Charlie make you feel?
A princess.
Did he make you feel safe?
Yes.
1960s Central London was full of minis, big hair, and was run by gangsters. I want to know what it was like for the women closest to the men that ran Gangland London. Blockbuster films try and portray the life, but is it accurate?
London in the 1960s. Everyone had a story about the Krays. They were twins.
Do you think we look alike?
Reggie was a gangster prince of the East End. Kray was a one-man mob.
Your brother is violent, paranoid, schizophrenic. What I'm trying to tell you is that he's off his rocker.
Well, no.
These films portray these types of men and their lifestyles as dangerously exciting and glamorous. But was this all really the case? I've got in touch to ask the people who really know the answers. Maureen Flanagan was an early tabloid model and the hairdresser for Ronnie and Reggie's mother, Violet. Over the years, Maureen became a very close friend of the family to the twins and continued to visit them in prison until they died. If anyone knows about the twins and how they were with women, it will be Maureen. And I started by asking her how she felt about the violence.
No, we didn't know what they were doing. A lot of that came out, you remember, as people talked once they were arrested. People wouldn't dare to tell. Nipper Reid was waiting for 4 years to bring down the Krays. So we didn't really know the extent of all what happened. We knew there were fights at snooker halls. We knew, but then I was in a family that had fights in pubs. My brother-in-laws had fights in pubs, and that was brushed aside next day. But probably you talked to the man the next day. We didn't know to the extent of what the Krays were doing, and the protection money, and the absolute extreme violence, you know, of using machetes on people. Nobody had done that before them, you know. So once I knew that he had killed George Cordell. Remember, I knew that man's got a wife. He had children, small little children. They'd been robbed of their father. They'd grown up without a father. And then I thought that was disgusting.
Maureen was close with the Krays, but was never intimate with them. I'm going to meet a woman who was married to Charlie Richardson, head of the Richardson gang and rival to the Kray firm. Veronica met Charlie after his prison sentence, but they were happily together until he died.
Charlie was not an angel by any form, and he could be quite hard-nosed. But as I've always maintained, it's the circles that he lived in. These people knew the score, and it was a case of kill or be killed. And Charlie wasn't going to, lie down and roll over. So he was determined to be number one. I mean, he was a millionaire, before he went away. I mean, he was paying the police every week.
Despite suspicions that he was gay, Reggie married Frances Shea. Their relationship is often described as turbulent and difficult.
When I first met Frances, I met a very, very beautiful girl, 18, sitting on Mrs. Kray's sofa, like looking at the clock all the time, waiting for him to come back. And when's he coming back? And Violet used to say, he'll be back. Wait there, have a cup of tea. She wasn't allowed to do anything. She never went out on her own from the time she met him. And after the marriage, she only went when Mrs. Kray went. No man would approach Frances and tell her hair looked nice, or she looked nice tonight, like they would to maybe normal women. They were very in control of their mother as well, and especially Ronnie.
Charlie was an excellent husband. Excellent father, more than people realise. He encouraged my kids, stay well away from anything like this. Yes, he could be a bit grouchy sometimes, you know. As I say, it could be volatile sometimes, but it was always over stupid things. It was all silly things. But we were a very strong family, very close knit, and everything we did together.
I'm learning a lot, but I'm still not sure how these women come to terms with crime. I've travelled to meet Lena Davis, a practitioner in psychiatry and philosophy.
People compartmentalise their lives. So their lives as a married woman could be everything they think it was. A loving man who provides, who they can rely on, and they block out the violence just as they blocked it out at the time, and just like soldiers' wives have done this for generations.
Ronnie was very openly gay and didn't have much interest in women, but was apparently very unhappy with his brother's relationship.
He didn't like women. He loved his mother. He loved his two aunties and his cousin. That was about it, and allowed a few women, which I was one, into their circle. And then nobody could harm me. Nobody could be nasty to me, but at that table, I mean, I couldn't get up from that table like I would now. I thought, oh, look, it's Ronnie or Roy or Charlie. I go and talk. You didn't. You stayed on that table. So, not like today. We won't be controlled today.
How was that? Was that not... Did you not think at the time that was not right, or I suppose didn't think anything of it?
I thought it was the way of life, remember?
Yeah.
I was 20 at the time. I'd been married 9 months. My husband, being Irish again, was very possessive and very jealous.
Fortunately, the people that knew us, that really knew us, knew that I wasn't just Charlie's wife. It's the people, again, on the outside that think you're just, you know, oh yeah, that's Charlie's wife. Oh, that's nice. Hello. End of. And that, you know, I mean, it could happen. It wasn't so much that I was bothered by it as such, but because I'm such a strong person in my own right, I found it very awkward. I do think that they're under the perception that we all walk around, we drive around in Rolls Royces, we have all fur coats, and you know, and although we had a good life, there's no mistaking, but that was mainly through mining. It wasn't anything to do with any corruption.
Times were very different. Women very much liked an alpha male to look after them. Some of their lives were quite glamorous, and times are different. Now women are more vocal. They have media through which they can express themselves. So times were very, very different.
Frances always looked like a film star, always, but terrified of Ronnie. And in the end, she was very highly strung anyway. She had tried to commit suicide twice before, so this time, unfortunately, or fortunately, she probably thought, it worked. And he was like a wreck.
Yeah.
You know, a drunk. He drank himself senseless for the first month or two. Every time I went round there, he was sitting, not like the Reggie, the bouncy, asked the questions, alive Reggie. But he loved her, but in a possessive, jealous, terribly controlled, not to be allowed to go out and buy a dress. Can you imagine you? Me, imagine me? No. Your clothes were delivered.
Crazy.
That's a terrible life to live, and in the end, she just, and being invulnerable as well, she just couldn't take it anymore.
It's not something I would want people to, you know, I'd say to people, yeah, you go for it. Because, you know, that person could make an absolute fortune. You could be spending 5 years of great times, great holidays, champagne, the works, and then they're nicked. It's tragic, and everybody's life is destroyed because of it.
It doesn't happen often, I'm sure, to a lot of people, but when it does, you sort of know there's an instant attraction there, and I think he probably felt the same way too. A sort of first proper date, I had known him for some time. We'd been meeting, you know, in the pub, and so it was our first proper date when we went out for a drink together on our own. And at the end of the evening, he did say, would I like to come back for coffee? He left me in the living room, and sort of looking around the room as you do, and I noticed a picture on the mantelpiece of Tony and Ronnie Kray. It was a black and white picture. It was obviously taken quite some time ago. I would imagine Tony was sort of in his mid-20s at the time. And when he came into the room, you know, I asked him, I said, is that Ronnie Kray in the picture with you? And he said, yeah. And I didn't push it, and neither did him. It was like an unspoken agreement that we just didn't, you know. I mean, Tony was probably nervous to push the conversation on at that point, whereas it would have been, you know, it would have been ideal for him to say there and then what was going on. But I think he was very, very nervous of frightening me off. I know that now. Very, very nervous. I was having my legs waxed actually by a friend, and sort of chatting away in general, and my friend said, oh, how's Tony? And I was a bit surprised that she actually knew him, and I said, oh yeah, he's fine, you know. How do you know Tony? She said, oh, my mum knew him before he went away. And you know, sort of big shots of went away where? And she just said, well, before he went away in prison. And I couldn't ask him. I was gobsmacked. I was just stunned. I couldn't ask him. I didn't want to know from that moment. I just needed to speak to Tony. I didn't want to hear it from anyone else. He sat me down, you know, and I'd obviously said, you know, I've heard something tonight. I think you need to explain to me some things. And then, you know, the look of horror on his face is that, you know, I'd actually sort of found out. Before actually telling me, he kept sort of emphasising that, look, you know, I just wanted this to come from me and not anyone else. You know, I haven't told you because I was worried, which I was thinking to myself, you know, well, God, what's wrong here? You know, what's gone on? I just need to be, you know, I need to be told. And when he actually said, you know, I was convicted for murder and got life recommendation of 15 years. I think the colour basically drained from me. I was really, really shocked. It took me a long time to come to terms with what Tony had done.
In a kill or be killed world, living with the men who ran Gangland London must have been exciting and sometimes glamorous. But I've heard firsthand how difficult it could be.
You did feel like he was your knight in shining armour, I suppose, really.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly, moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there.